to look in the eyes of spirit. It's not a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing. And today's talk is called, what have we learned? What has our spirituality taught us, I believe, is the talk. And it's Easter Sunday, so I'm going to read a couple of passages here from my book that I like so much. Not my book, but, well, it's my copy of the book. It's called The Holy Spirit's Interpretation of the New Testament. And it's a great book. It goes Matthew through Revelation. And it feeds me in a beautiful way. So I looked up resurrection. This first part comes from 2 Timothy chapter 2. And it says, the resurrection is within. For it is the light that has never died. But it has been covered by a mask of false belief. The mask is dark and heavy, and it occupies your every thought when you believe heavily in it. This is why it must let go, or it must be let go. It hides that which is you and is within, living now in peace. It hides all this, and it tells you that the truth is not true. As long as you hide in fear, you believe it. You believe the false, and it is fear that keeps you standing there. So then I read this. This comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And it says, this is how death and the resurrection are to be acted out through you. The truth cannot die. And when we talk about truth here, we put a capital T on it, and it means that which has no opposite. We're not talking about my truth. My truth is synonymous with my opinion. We've just found a fancier word to justify it in these days' psychological times. But my truth is still my opinion, and it's the way I see things. Truth itself has no opposite. So, the truth cannot die, so the truth need not be resurrected. The truth simply is, and it always is, without beginning and without end. What is it then that must die? What is there to be resurrected? Well, your belief in illusions must die, so that your awareness of what is may be resurrected through you. And then one last reading. This one comes from the book of John, chapter 16. And it says, Jesus has been given as a symbol of your truth. And all that Jesus speaks, he speaks of me, meaning spirit. For Jesus and I are one, just as you and I are one. You hear the connection between Jesus and you and me and spirit. So look at your brother Jesus and know that the light is in him, that is in him, is in you also. When Jesus said that he had overcome the world, he meant that he had transcended the world in love. To transcend the world in love is to open to the realization that all that is not love is not in reality. This is to know the truth of all people. And to know the truth of all people is to know and see the light. To know and see the light cannot be when light is all there is. This was Jesus' joy, and this shall be your joy also. How could Jesus deny a death when death is defined as leaving a world that does not exist? To leave a world that is not real is not to die. It is to wake up from a dream that you thought was real, but was not. The resurrection is an awakening. It is to awaken to the reality of God and your oneness with God. It is to know the truth and joy that you call heaven. It is not a change at all, but only an awareness that seems to be change. Because all that you are aware of now is not true. And all that you are aware of in truth is only true. This seems to be a change when it is not. Because only the truth is true. And all that could ever be true is truth. It's a lot of words, truth. Now say it back. So, to begin to look at all that you think is real, that couldn't possibly be real. Let's start with resentments. Not one of our resentments is real. Oh my God, that's like stabbing you, isn't it? Not one of my political beliefs is real. Not one of my Facebook posts is real. So what's real? everything else. Well, years ago I heard somebody say to me, only the truth is true. Now for some people a line like that is just horrible. It's anathema to them. For me, it was an awakening. I found I could look at things and say, oh, so anything that's not truth isn't true. And I began to, I have reverb on my mic? No. Okay, I'm echoing up here. Anything that's not true, I don't have to worry about anymore. I don't have to fight. I don't have to think about it so much. And you could say, well, how do you discern? And it's like, we all have the power to discern. We're just very fond of our opinions. We're just very, very fond of our opinions. And we fight to make our opinions real. And good news is they never will be. Your opinions will never be real. And I'm sad to say neither will mine. Very sad to say that. And so we come together to sing, to pray, to vibrate, to celebrate, to raise up in our thinking so that we don't have to go home from here and hit send or post. So that we don't have to do that. We can. And then we'll live in guilt. Then we will live, which is not real either. See, our God does not need us to be guilty. Our God does not need us to be ashamed. Our God does not need us. And that's the God Jesus kept offering. That was the Abba, the Father that he kept talking about. That doesn't need us to live in shame before each other, in front of each other, that we must bow down as if we are horrible sinners. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is accept a thought of God as love, and then accept a thought of ourselves as love, and realize there's no separation between the thought of God as love and myself as love. There is no difference. It's not, oh, God is more love than I am. That's, if I'm made in the image, then I am the same amount of love that God is. I've just been given a choice on how to use it, whereas God has no choice, because God isn't a person. God is love itself. And so all that love is in me. All of God is in me. Some of our antecedents, I like the example they use. God is in me the way the wave is in the ocean. The wave is not the entire ocean, but the wave couldn't exist without the ocean. And so I am not the entirety of God, but I couldn't be, I'm the wave. And you guys are the wave. And you will choose what you're going to do with the wave. So for some of us, we've been thinking, but I can't. I can't be all of the God in me. You don't understand, Sean. In the real world, which is one of my least favorite things to hear, it's up there with the word bad. In the real world, there is no real. This is the real world. Spirit is the real world. Because spirit is eternal. My body is not eternal. This room isn't eternal. Our relationships, the way we know them, are not eternal. That street is not eternal. Trust me, the sidewalk is not eternal. They just put it in last week. So the sidewalk before it was not eternal. So to pay attention to that, and my thoughts are not eternal. Who here has ever thought something and then it changed? Exactly. A couple of people, you didn't raise your hand. You're not still thinking the same thoughts. Who's here has body has changed since birth? Oh, yeah. If not, your poor mother. Things keep changing. And we make these pronouncements as if they won't. I have a dream that politics would end. That because it so promotes separation. I have a dream that there would no longer be a separation of countries. That there would be a world of people. Now, David has a thought. If the earth were to be attacked from outer space, we wouldn't care who voted for who. We would we would have a new enemy instead of each other. And so what happened? It tells me it's a game we're playing. It's a dirty, filthy game that we play, that we get high on, that we get energized by. We watch the news and get high. We do all. How many people here watch the news and think of the love of God? Marty, I believe you. Only love exists in all these people on the news. Hardly anybody thinks that way. But we watch the news and we take pride in our opinions. And the message of Jesus Christ is love. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, all thy soul, and all thy strength. And the next part is love thy neighbor as thyself. And unfortunately, many of us do. So many of us are loving our neighbors exactly the filthy way we love ourselves. The filthy, nasty way that we love ourselves. I'm sorry, I don't mean to scare you. And we don't have to do that. We have a choice. We have a choice. It's like, and some days we think we don't. Ask any addict who's in the height of their addiction. They think they don't have a choice but to use today. Any addict of a substance. Alcohol, cigarettes, what have you. Until one day they say, wait a minute, I don't have to. I don't have to. I remember when I quit cigarettes. And I every day was a challenge. I was on like my 7th day. And I liked my cigarettes, I got to tell you. And I thought, wait a minute, I've got 7 days without a cigarette. I don't have to smoke just because there's smoke around me, just because other people are. And I didn't. And those days have got me over 20 years without a cigarette. And in the past few days, I haven't eaten carbohydrates. I haven't had sugar and carbohydrates that turn into sugar in a few days because I want to make a different choice. Not because I'm guilty for having eaten sugar my entire life, several times a day. But there are moments in each day that I think, do I have a choice or do I have to eat a cookie? Do I have a choice? Do I have to have a pea puff? That's a new thing at Costco that's quite delicious. We were at Stu Leonard the other night, and they have a new thing called cheesecake cookies. I thought, oh, get thee behind me, Satan. But I walked out of there, and my feelings hurt a little bit. And then we were at some other store, and I saw this Easter egg that looked, chocolate Easter egg that looked fascinating. I'd never seen it before, but it was yellow. And so I like a good pastel chocolate. That's nice. I have the microphone. Shh. When there's audience participation, I will call for it. But these eggs, they were so. David and I left the store, and I just had sadness because ketosis is starting to kick in. Now, if I had decided to eat the egg, I'm not guilty in God. But I'm at that in-between place where I don't feel great not doing it, but I know I won't feel good doing it either. At this point, I won't even feel comforted. Now, if I started to eat them again, then I can be in a habit and think I'm assuaging some discomfort. Do you all know how high tea got started? Yeah. High tea? The Countess of something needed something in the afternoon when she got that sinking feeling. So it took tiers of sandwiches and cakes to take care of that sinking feeling, that discomfort in the mid to late afternoon. I understand. The Jesus Christ message is sit with your discomfort for a minute. before you use something to assuage your self-loathing. Before you act out on the self-hatred that will eventually act out on your neighbor, that will come back and act out on yourself again. Your body and your mind can tolerate the discomfort. On the cross, he spoke words of forgiveness. On the cross, he spoke words and he prayed, surrendering himself over to Spirit. He knew that the body is not the end of life, or the death of the body is not the end of life. Life is forever. Life is eternal. And our relationship with Spirit is the most important thing we could ever have. Now, I've said this a couple of times now. My friend Russell reminded me that many people want to serve God, but only in an advisory position. And so when one surrenders to God, God, tell me what to think, or Spirit, tell me what to think. And if you catch yourself in your prayer saying, Spirit, tell me what to think about this, and you hear yourself saying, and tell me to think this. So now you're suddenly you're trying to convince God what is bad. You're trying to convince God of what's awful. You're trying to convince God. You don't want to convince your God of anything less than love. So go in prayer to the God of your understanding, assuming that that God is love itself, is peace itself. And the only information you want from that voice that does speak through you, whether you're listening or not, it does speak through you. And assume you are being told words of love, of peace, of joy. You will not always hear words of niceness. I have friends who live in hell because they keep trying to be nice to everybody. And nice is not always the path to wholeness, or at least the realization of wholeness. Everybody's already whole. It's the path to the realization of wholeness. And so the Jesus Christ message, or the way, as his message was called back then, his ministry was called the way. He kept pointing the way, and it's brutal because the way is forgiveness. The way is giving way forth a new idea of love, a new thought of love. When Mark sang that lyric that says, I forget the first part. I was always home. What's the lyric? Before that. What's the home line? Just before it. Mark?
When I'm in your eyes, I feel that I am home.
When I'm in your eyes, I feel that I am home. And the next line says, how could I not have known? How could I not have known? I'll tell you how. Because I just acted out beforehand. Because I just bought something, yelled at somebody, resented somebody, I hit send, I hit post, I voiced my opinion, thinking I was right and thinking it was true. And then I was home. How could I not have known? In spirit, in truth, in the awakening realization of love, we are home. So this week, and every week following, I invite you to think before you speak. To think before you hit a button. To think and say, is this the message of love and forgiveness that ought to be put out into the world by me? Is this the proclamation I ought to be making for me to know that I am home in spirit? Is this the love I want to be known for by myself? Whether I'm known by anybody else for it, is this what I want to be known for by myself? That I am sick and tired and poor and wretched. Is that what I'm abused? Is that what I want to be known as myself? Or do I want to know myself as love? And all it would take is a 7-second pause. before it goes out on the airwaves. A few seconds pause to say, oh, do I want to say this to my partner, my mother, my father, my neighbor, the world, the internet? Is this what I want to represent myself as? Is this the unity message that I want to put out to my own airwaves and to the world? Even if I'm in my car alone. I'm not telling you not to have your feelings. I'm telling you, take a 7-second pause before you pronounce anything. And then decide, is this really worth pronouncing? There will be times you will have to chew the inside of your mouth out. I just want you to know this. But when you get in the habit of, I don't have to say that. I don't have to pronounce that. I can tolerate this discomfort for a moment, for a few seconds more. It will pass. And so today, on Easter, in this rising up of our vibration, in this rising up of our consciousness, to become aware of abundant love, abundant health, abundant well-being, abundant harmony, abundant wealth, abundant good that cannot be changed. I encourage all of us to look into the eyes of spirit and realize we are home. Thanks for sharing this day with me.